this particular story which we came across, this case at the Catholic-run school, national school in County Meath, the Yellow Firs National School, which has decided to reward children who take part in after-hours religious ceremonies with less homework. And it seems that one of the parents of a pupil attending the school complained to management after her son was one of 2 out of 33 pupils who was what she called penalised with homework for not attending a religious ceremony. The ceremony in question being participation in the school choir for the Holy Communion ceremony. Now, the child involved is non-Catholic. In defence of the move, the school in County Meath says it provides all its pupils who engaged in what it calls positive behaviour, such as participating in a Holy Communion choir, with a reward for doing so. In this case, a reward for less homework. And if you'll excuse the pun, there's been a chorus of disapproval in some quarters, not least from our next guest. The Atheist Ireland Group chairperson Michael Nugent is on the line now. Michael, good morning to you.
Good morning.
The interesting point here is you're saying, and people will be commenting on this as they have done and saying they agree or disagree, but this is happening in various forms, you're saying, and guises elsewhere as well.
Yeah, well, this particular one is rewarding children for the practice of religion and punishing children for not engaging in the practice of religion. Now, that's a breach of human rights under freedom of conscience and religion and belief. You can't force people or indeed coerce people in any way into religious practice. The homework thing, like if some children are getting off this homework, then the homework obviously isn't necessary. So they're punishing children by giving them unnecessary homework. And that's not what homework is for. It's not what religious services are for. And it's because Catholic schools, so what we informally call Catholic schools, they're actually national schools. They're funded by the state. They have a Catholic patron, but they're there for everybody in the community. And in most parts of the country, it's the only school in your locality. So it's not as if you have a million options to go to. Yeah. And what's happening is in recent years, the Atheist Ireland has been to the forefront of campaigning to ensure that people know that they have the right under the Constitution and under the Education Act to opt out from religious class and religious worship in schools. And because of that, because the schools can't anymore get away with just forcing children to sit through these ceremonies, that they're coming up with these various ways of invading religion in any way. They'll ask parents in to meet them to discuss their religious beliefs. If they want to opt their child out, they won't give them another subject.
Okay, all right. Well, I just hold you there because I just hold you there because it is the case that the two students, the two pupils in question, out of the 33 who didn't want to, and their families didn't want to, they're non-Catholic and they didn't want to obviously embrace the whole Holy Communion ideal. They weren't forced to do so. That's so. I mean, you use the word punishment. The school uses the word reward. So there's a big difference, isn't there?
Well, it depends on what side of it you're on.
Yeah.
Whether you're getting the reward or not. Yeah, but can I say something about that? A lot of religious cases in schools where parents are complaining about their children being indoctrinated. A lot of them, it's the parents that are complaining because it's breaching the parents' conscience and the parents are acting on behalf of the children. But we find that with these ones, when complaints are brought to us about these type of things, it's the children that are upset because the children are being told by the school, you're different, you're alienated from the rest of the class. And children shouldn't be separated on that way, but on the basis of religion.
Okay, well, I don't know if they're separated now, because remember, this is after hours, and that's where the reward or punishment, as you see it, comes into it. What would you do if you were the school principal, Michael? God forbid, or maybe not God forbid, as the case may be. What would you,
Richard Dawkins forbid.
What would you do with the two children who obviously don't want to be part of this Holy Communion ceremony and all that goes with it? What do you get them to do?
If it's outside of hours, you don't do anything. If it's outside of hours, they just do whatever they're doing. Why on earth should the school, if it's engaging with something that's outside of school hours, be either punishing or rewarding children for doing what they do outside of school hours? I mean, ultimately what they should be doing is they should be respecting the fact that even if they have a Catholic ethos, that parents under the Constitution and under the Education Act have an absolute right for their child to attend that school without engaging in religious practice, and that the schools should just respect that and not try to find ways around it and find ways to try and get children involved in religious practice anyway.
I can't speak for the school, but they're talking about that they have a policy of providing pupils who engage in positive behaviour with reward. So presumably if you play football after hours and go training, that you'll be rewarded as well. So what is the difference then?
Well, the difference is that the school, obviously, or the people running the school are Catholics, and they think that it's a positive thing to go to communion. But if you're not a Catholic, and if you're one of the many people in the country who actually believe that Catholicism has caused a great deal of harm in Ireland and elsewhere, then you don't consider it a positive thing. You consider it a negative thing. And it's a matter of personal conscience. Like, you can't force everybody to think that going to Mass is a positive thing. If, for example, hypothetically, if you reverse it around, and if for some reason or other a school was having a ceremony to promote atheism, and to teach children that there is no God. Now, I'm not looking for that to happen. I think that would be just as bad. But if that was happening, and a religious parent was saying, well, I don't want my children brought to a ceremony where they're taught that there's no God, and the school started bribing the children by giving them these rewards or punishing them if they don't go, then every religious parent in the country would realise that that's wrong. And an atheist viewpoint and an atheist philosophy is just as precious to atheists as religious viewpoints are to religious people.
I absolutely understand, but and I know you to put it mildly, feel strongly about the separation of church and state for educational purposes, but it is a school with a Catholic ethos. You think that should never ever be the case, and those days should be done away with? Exactly,
yeah, because they're national schools and they're there for everybody. And when they were first set up, it was actually respected. Bear in mind that the right to attend schools, state-funded schools without attending religion, was put in place in the 1937 Constitution, so under Eamon de Valera. So even back then they recognised the importance of freedom of religion and respecting people who don't have the same religion. And at the start, for many decades in those schools, it was running that way. There was literally a sign put up saying we're now doing religion, and a sign when they're doing secular subjects, in order that pupils could, remove themselves from the religious part. But what happened was when they integrated the religious curriculum a few decades ago back into the whole curriculum, then that's when things started getting entangled. And you've got to remember that the Catholic Church doesn't see the purpose of religious education as teaching children about religions or beliefs in an objective way. They see it as the purpose of that religion class, and indeed of the whole school, as to evangelise. And so you have a clash of cultures there. And ultimately, when you have that clash of cultures, when the state is funding the schools and the schools are there for everybody, then they should treat all religions and beliefs equally. OK, there's some interesting texts coming in, but I was listening to an interview you'd done on national radio yesterday, and you gave the example of a case in the west of Ireland where, was it a national school pupil had ashes placed on her forehead? She was a Muslim That's
child,
right,
is
yeah.
that right?
Yeah, there's many instances like that, and cases where, ironically enough, Atheist Ireland, by the way, works with the Evangelical Alliance of Ireland and the Ahmadi Muslim community of Ireland on this issue of secular schools, because although we've got very different worldviews, we support human rights and we support freedom of religion and belief, so we work together on that. And we find that in many cases, children of atheist families and children of Muslim families and children of evangelical families end up becoming friends in schools, because they're the ones that are sitting together outside the Mass when everybody's brought to Mass, or they're the ones that are sitting at the back of the religion class because their parents have opted them out of Catholic religion class. So it's just an attitude. It's a sense of entitlement that the Catholic Church still has.
Okay, and this Muslim child was given ashes on Ash Wednesday. Was that?
Yes, that's right. And she protested. She said that she was a Muslim. She wasn't a Catholic, and they just went ahead and did it anyway.
All right, okay. Again, most people making the point, it's a Catholic ethos school, a Catholic-run school, so why does Michael have such a problem with it? If he feels that strongly about it, or parents feel that strongly about it, take their children away from the school.
Well, you can't do that. It's the only school in the area in most cases. And that was actually addressed some years ago. You might remember a case in Cork of a woman now called Louise O'Keefe, who was abused in a local Catholic school, and she took a case against the state. And the state was saying that was defending themselves by saying, well, she could have gone to another school, she could have homeschooled, and she should be suing the church instead of the state. Now, the European Court of Human Rights found that saying you can go to another school does not respect your human rights, because if your human right to education free of indoctrination, and saying you can go to another school or homeschool when they're not practical options is not vindicating that right. The way the European Court said, it's just an illusory right if you can't actually vindicate it. So we've over 3,000 primary schools in the country, less than 100 are educate together schools, and so it's just not practical to say go to another school when it isn't there.
Okay, all right, Michael, thanks for your time this morning. Michael Nugent, chairperson of Atheist Ireland. We'll take a break. When we